In this vid, I'm going to be doing a ranking of all movies in the DC Extended Universe, the DC Cinematic Universe, whatever you want to call it. I did a version of this video last year after Shazam came out, but since then, a year and a half later, my opinions in terms of the ranking on some of the films has changed. Plus, in 2020, there were 2 movies in the DCEU to come out. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start ranking these 9 movies in the DCEU. And just to point out, Joker is technically not part of the DCEU, so it will not be a part of the official ranking in this list. At number 9 is Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad did a good job with the casting and portrayals of Deadshot and Harley Quinn, but pretty much missed the mark on almost everything else. It's just got one of the worst villain plots ever put in a superhero film with the Enchantress, the mind control, the zombie things, whatever they were. It was just a terrible plot, terrible script. Movie had a terrible third act. It was just really badly written all the way around when it came to the plot. And the way they did the Joker, played by Jared Leto, was misguided, to put it kindly. At number 8 is Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. This movie just did an amazing job of fucking up what should have been an easy plot and story to do. Or really, a Batman vs. Superman movie should write itself if you focus on the moral values and issues between what Batman and Superman do. But instead, this movie just overcomplicated the plot, went overboard with the story. The story was a mess, to where the central reason why Batman and Superman were fighting was laughable, even though the actual fight between them was kind of cool. And I actually did like the Trinity team up between Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman versus Doomsday, but overall the story was just too all over the place, not focused enough, and the movie just did not live up to the potential of what it should have meant for the DC Extended Universe. At number 7 is Wonder Woman 1984. Coming off how excellent the first film was, this movie really disappointed me, so the main problem for me was the story. The story just was not good. The central villain plot involving Pedro Pascal's character, really kind of laughable and just did not work. There was some stuff I did like. I did actually like Kristen Wiig as Cheetah, Diana and Steve Trevor. They still had good chemistry, some of the action was good, but overall the lack of a good plot with the villain and the overlong runtime of 2 hours and 25 minutes made this one kind of a letdown for me. At number 6 is Justice League. Justice League seems to be like a really kind of polarizing movie amongst the DC community. There's a lot of people that just hate the movie, which is why a lot of people were begging for the actual director's cut Zack Snyder version. When it came to this movie, I actually didn't hate it. I actually found it to be fairly enjoyable for what they gave us. I like the camaraderie that they gave us between the heroes. I actually think the additions that Joss Whedon made to the movie actually made it work better in some ways, just because it gave you some more humor, more camaraderie. We got to see them acting as heroes. It's some of the same stuff we saw in Whedon's Avengers movies. I actually thought some of the stuff that he put in there wasn't bad. The main problem is the villain Steppenwolf. Just a terrible villain plot, terrible motivation, just terrible character. Really drags the movie down. And when you compare how a villain like Thanos was done compared to Steppenwolf, there's just no comparison. He was just a terrible villain in terms of the plot. But like I said, the movie has enough fun elements to make it a decent watch. Even though it's no Avengers movie, it's still not the terrible movie that people try to make it out to be. At number 5 is Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. This movie really captures what a Harley Quinn movie should really feel and just be about, where they really sort of copied sort of the tone and style of Deadpool and really gave it to this movie. And it really works because it captures the craziness that you would want to see in a Harley Quinn movie, those crazy vibes and all that stuff. The R rating, while not completely necessary, did help give the movie sort of that edgy vibes that a Harley Quinn movie I guess should have. No, the plot wasn't the deepest and the story wasn't all that really thought through in terms of being this amazing story, but for a Harley Quinn movie it works, and that's how I'd sum up the movie. As a Harley Quinn movie, it just works. At number 4 is Man of Steel. Man of Steel is just a movie that's really kind of frustrating for me, just because I thought the first 2/3 of the movie were just brilliant. The way they told the story, the way they showed Superman's origins and his life through flashbacks as he's sort of navigating the world as Superman, coming into his powers, his first flight scene, the dialogue, the cast, the conversations that he had with his father. It was just brilliant, to where if the movie had kept up that stuff, it would absolutely be one of the best comic book movies of all time. It was that good, that first 2/3. But then the final third came in, to where the final third of the movie is a CGI action overload. It's just way too much. It really resembled more of sort of like a generic disaster movie rather than a superhero movie, to where the CGI, the action, the structure is just way too much, to where every time I watch the movie, I just get numb to it. It really kind of ruined what was otherwise a brilliant movie. But for how brilliant those first 2/3 of the movie was, that's why I gave it the number 4 spot on this list. At number 3 is Aquaman. I'm not quite as enthusiastic about Aquaman as I was when I first saw the movie 2 years ago. When I look back at it, that whole sort of Indiana Jones quest plot in the middle isn't the greatest writing, but I still think it's a really fun movie. They pull off the underwater sequences amazingly. The visuals when it comes to the underwater part, just great. I thought Jason Momoa did a good job. The whole cast did a good job. Even they managed to make Amber Heard somehow likable, and she gave a good performance in this movie. It had some heart with the stuff they had with the parents. It was just overall, it was a fun solo movie debut for the character, even though he was more water Thor than he was Aquaman. 2019's Joker is not an official part of this DCEU list, but if I was putting it in this list, it would go right here in between my number 3 film and my number 2 film. I actually think the movie is more sort of a great character study than it is a great movie, but that character study is just propped up, obviously, by an amazing performance by Joaquin Phoenix, the movie's dark tone, its direction, and its killer ending is why I would put it in between my number 3 and 2 films if it was an official part of my DCEU list. Number 2 on the official list is Wonder Woman. The first Wonder Woman movie was just as good as you'll see from an origin story for a superhero. The movie just did an amazing job of showing Wonder Woman's character, her values, what she stands for. Her camaraderie with her friends was great. The World War I setting was great too, to give the movie some uniqueness. And the movie just has the amazing No Man's Land scene, which is just a really powerful scene, an amazing scene for any movie, let alone a superhero movie. The movie just did a great job with her origin story. The only downside of the movie was sort of the final part with Ares was a little too much and a little too long and all over the place, but that didn't ruin what was otherwise just a great movie and just story for Wonder Woman. And my number 1 spot goes to Shazam. Shazam was really different from almost every other superhero movie that comes out, just because it was really aiming to be sort of that family-friendly superhero film adventure, and it almost did just a perfect job with what it was trying to do, just because it really does capture those family-friendly feels to have a movie about a kid that gets all the superhero power and that shows how much fun the kid would have, and in return you get all that fun as the audience watching the movie. It's just a really fun movie. It was really funny, led by a great performance, leading performance by Zachary Levi as Shazam. He was just great. The stuff between the kids was great. It almost just felt like sort of like a 90s movie with the stuff that went on between the kids and how much fun it was. That's how they did it. And the movie even has a great conflict that comes in with the villain, who's actually a pretty good villain, that added a real sense of urgency and danger to that movie's sort of final bit. So yeah, Shazam was just a really fun, great movie, and gets my spot as the number 1 film in the DC Extended Universe. So there you go with my ranking for all the films in the DC Extended Universe. To sum things up, at number 9, Suicide Squad, 8, Batman vs. Superman, 7, Wonder Woman 1984, 6, Justice League, 5, Birds of Prey, 4, Man of Steel, 3, Aquaman, 2, Wonder Woman, and at number 1, Shazam. When I look at things with DC, I would like to see them sort of connect the films more in terms of telling a grander overall story. I think that would build more anticipation for the films going forward. I know that's how they sort of struggled going into Justice League, but I think they've learned enough lessons to where now they can pull off sort of telling a bigger, grander overall story. Also, another thing I would like to see them do is that they've got to find a way to bring Batman and Superman more into the spotlight. Those are their 2 flagship characters, 2 of their most iconic characters of all time, and they definitely need to be showcased in their movies going forward. But overall, DC, while they have sort of a mixed bag when it comes to their filmography in terms of quality, they definitely have their share of really good movies I really enjoy, and movies that I would like to see them sort of replicate going forward in the future of the DC Extended Universe. So that'll do it for this video and these rankings. If you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching.